Emily Love in the house.
Good morning, ladies.
Oh my gosh, Emily. This has been a long time coming. This makes me so happy to have you on. You are a coach who I respect deeply and I really resonate with personally.
Mm,
So it is like when we thought about who do we want to have on to talk about mindset, you were the first person that came to my mind. And I just was so excited to have you on.
thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and all of the content that you guys provide is truly life-changing. So it's my honor to be here today with you guys.
Well, Emily, let's just jump in. We're talking today about leading our lives through our mindset. And I think mindset is a word that has come on the scene. I mean, I think for a
Mhm.
long time, people just weren't talking about it, but now they are. Like this is a buzzword. And so I would love to just start with the idea of, or the question, what even is mindset?
Mhm.
How do we
Mhm.
define it?
Yeah, I love that. And as a coach, that defining words is everything. And those buzzwords, right? We can even get somewhat of an idea about what it means, but until we sit down to really define it, then we might even not be dealing with it in the way that we want to. So I love this idea of defining words. So I actually looked it up. The Oxford definition of mindset is the established set of attitudes held by someone. And so I would say in my own language, would just say that your mindset is what you believe to be true about yourself, others, and the world.
Mhm.
And I think it's like interesting to note kind of where our mindset comes from. It comes from our family of origin, our life experiences, maybe our faith experiences or our faith in general, right? Those attitudes, mindsets, and beliefs that we hold about God. It can come from our personality, our temperament, relationships, and even our own success. So there's a mix of right inside and outside kind of external, internal factors that really like play into this. And I think a really great visual image of mindset would be a stained glass, right? And typically, I think we can see a really beautiful church when we think about maybe a really large stained glass window. Now, depending on where you stand in proximity to the window, right, you might stand to the left and you would get the green, the colors of the green in through the stained glass. And so you would see things out of that green lens and you would be seen as green, right? And then maybe if you shifted yourself over into the stained glass, now you're red and you see red. So there's a lot of different colors, right, in that stained glass picture. And our mindset really works like that. How we perceive and see the world is like that stained glass. So if my, beliefs or attitudes about something shape that color, now when I see out of that color, that's kind of what I'm going to see. So that's kind of how I like to describe mindset to people.
I love that visual. That's a helpful visual. And it is interesting because mindset, if not captured, if not really examined, becomes a pattern. And we create these well-worn grooves in our brains, and we just
Mhm.
automatically go to those, right? So our first thought is, and like you said, it could be just genetically, we're a little more glass half empty or glass half
Mhm.
full, right? So even genetically, we may have a tendency to see
Mhm.
things a certain way, but then our brains develop these grooves and then we just kind of go there. And so I think this is my question is when it comes to mindset, like we can think about it out there and almost and even define it and say, oh yeah, that makes sense, Emily. Totally get it. The stained glass thing, totally get it. People are seeing green. But how do we actually recognize it in ourselves?
Mhm.
Because the thinking has become so habitual and
Right.
so patterned that we
Mhm.
don't even know that it's
Mhm.
mindset. So, how do we like dig underneath that and actually recognize it for what it is?
That is such a great point, and it's a really great question, and it's why I am a coach and I believe in coaching so fully. Unless we slow down and intentionally see ourselves as we are and as we want to be, and as we think about who we are and what's God's story over our life and how we want to really interact in the world, it's going to be really hard to fight those patterns. And actually, what you're talking about, neuroscience, is wrapped all up in what you're saying, Krista, that 95% of our mental energy, ladies, did you guys know this, is spent in the subconscious every single day.
Mm.
So that's a huge percentage. We actually just operate because our mind wants to live in that really easy, energetic space, right? Where our mind doesn't want to have to think. It just wants to do things with routine. So the thinking, feeling, believing, acting, when it's repeated, becomes the pattern, and that becomes our subconscious way of life. So you're so right. Unless we pause and actually consider how we're thinking and feeling and what our actions are, and do we like those actions, we are going to actually operate in our routine way of thinking and believing. So I tell people, especially, as a coach, our first work is actually all about mindset. It's about pausing to consider what you're thinking about. It's pausing and listening to the voice that is actually a narrator over our lives. You guys, it's so interesting to me that we actually have this narrator whose job is to pick up all of the facts and the stimulus coming out from the world with our five senses. And then that job of the narrator is to kind of just sort through those things. And if you really pay attention, a lot of the times in life, we actually are listening to a narrator. We're not talking to ourselves. And so to slow down and listen to the narrator, then we can actually determine, do I think that about this narration? Is that how I want to see my mother-in-law or my children? Is this how I want to, what I want to think about my coworkers or my partner? Like, we really get to slow down, because then we get to really build new patterns, right? In our thinking, believing, feeling, and acting. And then our subconscious is actually working for us. So I would say, Krista, to your point, we really can't, based on the way that our mind works, change our thoughts unless we slow down and we're conscious of them. So that's the first work for sure.
And we move our feelings out of the driver's seat. I mean, that's, something that I think one of the hardest things to do is to not let the feelings drive the bus, because then we go feeling, thinking, behavior, actions, right? And that is a bad, feelings are great followers and bad leaders. And yet how often do we put feelings in that spot where it's driving then our thinking, and then we start that spiral? And so we have to capture it at the beginning or we're sunk. So can you tell us maybe a story of a time you have done that, or you've worked with a client who's done that?
Yeah. And, can I just quickly say to that point, I love that point about feelings, Krista. And I think it's really, we can use Dr. Susan David. She talks about how our feelings are a signpost. And so this is a great example even of a story where if we can slow down and just build consciousness around, every part of our life, when we do have a feeling, to pause and even consider what thought might be, right, injecting power into the feeling. It is never the feeling in and of itself that is just like a standalone generator of our action. We really can take it back. And I mean, really 10 out of 10 times that there's a thought that has sparked the feeling. And to pause can help us consider, is that true? Is that how I want to see or feel, right? And then we can decide differently. So I really love that. I think one of the first things that I have my clients do, and this is actually just it's such a simple practice, but a bit demanding because it requires your consciousness. I have people just make a T-chart, right? Draw up a T-chart. To the left of the T-chart, we are actually going to write a myth, a lie, or that gremlin narrator voice that is speaking something that you've caught. You're not good enough. You're never going to amount to anything. My marriage is never going to change. I'm never going to lose 15 pounds. Why do I feel like I'm always second place, right? Whatever those, we're going to catch some of those thoughts that might actually even spark like a pretty serious feeling for us. And then what I have clients do is I have them write it down, and then I actually have them cross it out, because there's something that happens when we cross out that lie. Our reticular activating system, right? The way that our brain works really sees that power. It's almost like it's actually crossing the belief out in your heart and your mind. And then I have them replace it to the right of that T-chart with the truth. How do you want to see yourself, the world, God, right? People, in light of that voice, that narrator, that thought that you're having? And then we replace whatever that myth, that lie, that truth is with the truth. And I have found there are, so many stories, ladies, of clients that come back and they literally will say, that's all I needed. That's literally all I needed to start to change how I feel about everything. They weren't aware with, with clarity of what those thoughts were doing. And I've had clients come back and say, the T chart saved my marriage.
Mm.
And it's not rocket science, right, you guys? It's just coming back to consciousness and then getting to really work with those thoughts and the truth in a different way. So that's been a really powerful exercise for so many people.
Okay. So if the exercise is to write down the lies, is that true? Is that what I'm hearing
Correct.
from you?
Yep.
I would think that there are a lot of women who don't even know that the voice they're hearing is a lie, that they have to go back even farther, because to say, write down your lies, you have to know that what you're believing is a lie. So what are some other questions? I really liked your question of, is this what I want to believe about X? What are some other defining questions that someone can ask to even get to the point of saying, I think something's off? Like they may know in general things are off, but they can't necessarily pinpoint, this is the pain point I need to be dealing with. What are some of those questions that you have people ask that are similar to, is this what I want to be believing about this?
Oh, that's such a great point. I think there's a couple of ideas here. I think even before that, Alex, to get to actually ask the question, what do you want first? So what do you want for yourself in certain areas? So what do you want for yourself physically in the next 6 months? And then when I start thinking about what I want, I can actually with more clarity see what's getting in the way of what I want, right? Or who do you want to be as a wife? So actually we're, instead of, I kind of like headed for those lies first, let's start with who we want to be, who do I believe that I am? And then we can start to journal actually what comes up consciously for us as we ask those questions. You could also ask, right, what is the barrier I'm feeling towards my health? So then we could go, okay, what's standing in the way? Then we can start to journal kind of those kind of things. Here's a question you could ask. What is the most hurtful thing someone has spoken over my life? So that question about hurt, right, can also take us back to feelings. And we don't have to live there and camp there and stay there, but oftentimes that hurtful thing really does, when we even think about it, it generates a feeling of shame, embarrassment, frustration. And then we can connect. You know what, that coach said that, about me when I was 12, and maybe I've never stopped believing that. So some of those kind of questions I think can actually get us, if you feel like you just said, Alex, like kind of, I don't even really know where to start. Dream about where you want to be. Think about what's getting in the way of that. Think about some of those other maybe past moments that feel like they're still rooted in what's the most hurtful thing or what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me, and how might that moment still be showing up in my mindset towards, myself or my work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, because I think for a lot of women, they don't just automatically go there. They need those guideposts to help them think through, okay, is this even true? What I'm believing about myself, is this true? And sometimes we don't even know to ask that, right? Because we believe it's true. That's just how we operate in the world. I've always believed this is true about who I am. My brother always said this about me, or whatever it is. Those messages that were spoken to us from such an early age that we've never even questioned the mindset, because it's so ingrained in who we are.
And I think that is literally highlighting the point, Alex. You're right. It's to pause and slow down and create consciousness. If we can't pause, now this is uncomfortable work, and this idea of it's an out there type mindset thing, or the lies, we can see like, oh, the lies, or that gremlin voice, like that's like an out there kind of idea, right? Or ideology on mindset stuff. And I believe that oftentimes the reason why we want to keep it out there is because it's safer. And to pause and create a quiet stillness can feel really challenging, trying, almost like it feels harder to do that work than to stay in this just above that pain rhythm, right? Where our subconscious likes to keep us. And yet that is even a mindset, right? well, it's easier to just do what I'm doing than to really face the hard work. And I would say, grab that, grab that. That is a lie that we can write on the left of our T chart. It is safer to stay above my pain. The truth is, when I deal with my pain, I get set free. That's what I write on that right side of that T chart, right? And that's how I change kind of like my view of myself. And Alex, you reminded me of one more question. When you think about kind of right, helping these women just grow more conscious, we could even ask ourselves, what shows up inside of me on my best day? And then we could ask that opposite question, who am I, or what shows up on my hardest day? And it's interesting, Krista, Alex, because when I talk to women, we can say, oh, I don't really know, I don't really have any answers. But as a coach, creating quiet moments for people, I will tell you 9 times out of 10, people know exactly the answer to those questions. They just need the stillness and they need the safety to answer it. And so, right, you are safe inside of yourself. Create a quiet place where you can go before God and even enter that work with him and ask yourself, who am I really on my best day? And let's see what shows up in our mind. And on our worst day, because I guarantee you the worst day is going to be filled with doubt and frustration. And man, I second guessed myself. And, we're going to see that mindset show up even in those kind of questions. So
we did an interview with Sissy Goff a while back, and she said something that I thought was really good and insightful. She said, and she's a therapist, and she said, we want feelings to be buckled in the backseat of the car. And I thought that was really helpful, because it's not that you're throwing out your feelings. It's not that you're not. In fact, you have, like you said, I mean, pain is the pathway to freedom. So you have to feel the pain to get through it and beyond it. So it's not that you're throwing out feelings. We're just putting them in their proper place. We're saying, yep, they're there, and we have to feel them and we have to deal with them. But then we're going to buckle them in the back seat. They're there. We acknowledge them. Hi. But they're not driving the car. And I just thought that was such a good visual on how we can think about that dynamic when it comes to our mindset too. So Emily, I would love to hear, one of the questions I ask, and this is what I think you were getting to right there, is when is our mindset serving us and when is it not serving us? Because that's basically the question you were asking, right? Like on my best day, this is what it's, what I am. On my worst day, this is how I'm showing up. So talk to us about a time when maybe your mindset wasn't serving you and how you moved through that.
Yeah, Alex, that's a great question. I experienced, I was a college athlete, so I experienced performance on a big stage. And my senior year of college, I was working to get drafted to the WNBA, trying to lead a team to, a Final Four, lots of outside stress and pressure. And in that year, I lost 2 people that I loved, my extended family members, into complete tragic and different accidents. And, here I am at 22. My faith was rocked. Who did I believe God to be, and how could the God I believed in, allow these kind of things to happen? It was a really tragic and transformative year for me. And headed, at the end of that year, 2 tragic deaths, the best season of all time for Arizona State, and a lot of internal fear and worry. I actually got married, and then a year later was pregnant. And there was just a lot happening for me at the end of that tragic season. And I actually found that we had a couple babies, and my husband was traveling and working. And it was through my feelings. It was through my physiological response in my body, right? The chest pressure, the tightness, the kind of the place that I would go when I would even dream about losing my own husband would be instant tears, panic, and dread. And I thought, this is not normal, and I cannot live like this. So after about a year of doing everything I could in my own power to try to rise above, right, that I asked for help, and I saw a therapist, and I started to work on my mindset. And I found that not only was the traumatic event, it had done some things, in my own mind that I needed help working with, but that experience changed how I thought about love and death. And so I actually had an incredible opportunity to really come to terms with how I wanted to experience love and the risk of it. And even in my own mind, how I held this, I mean, just overwhelming amount of love for my own children and my husband, and death. What was I going to do if I faced death? And so I started practicing exactly what I'm telling, you guys today and my clients. I would capture the lies and I'd replace it with truth, and I'd memorize scripture, and I'd pay attention to my physiological body. And when I felt like my body was getting worked up, I would do some of those principles, right? Breath work to calm my physical body down so I had access to healthy, abundant type thinking. So that's one experience that absolutely shaped my mindset. And then I would also say, kind of recently, through mindset work, because I believe in it and I do it for myself, and I see, you, Krista, as a client, and I'm just doing a lot of things. I noticed that I had a gremlin voice that was telling me that I was never good enough. As a coach, as a writer, I could hear this voice, and I could feel in my body. Again, there's a connection for me there. Maybe it's because I'm an athlete. I think all of us have that, though, that right psychosomatic connection. And I could feel this criticism. And it was like, I had to go back and say, okay, this was the voice that helped me be a phenomenal athlete. So every day as an athlete, when I heard that you might not be good enough, you're going to play the number 2 team, so you need to get back in the gym. You didn't have a good practice, so you need to push harder tomorrow. I would listen to the critical voice, I would push harder, and then I'd get phenomenal results. That's really how I became an excellent athlete. But that doesn't serve me in this season. And so oftentimes I love this idea of adaptive versus maladaptive. As a college athlete, that was an adaptive strategy for me. But in a new season of my life, where I am not a college athlete, I'm not performing on a grand stage, right? Like, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I have 4 children, I'm working with a business, I'm working, intimately with others, all of these kind of things. It was the criticism was maladaptive. It was harming me, cutting me down. And so I've learned to change the criticism to encouragement, because encouragement is my love language. And now I encourage myself, right, to that excellence. And it's a completely different result. 2 different ways, right? Criticism and encouragement, but the same kind of endpoint is excellence. And I can get that excellence in a different way. So I've kind of coached myself, with the help of others and myself to recognize those mindsets in me.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really helpful, I think, to hear examples of that. And gosh, isn't that so true about athletics? I even see that in my son, who's a really competitive golfer, and he almost uses that kind of mindset of, keep doing better. It's almost like a punishment mindset sometimes, and that you just like, he's really hard on himself, and it's real. Like, it's real. And so when I think that question is really helpful is, when is that serving us and when is it not serving us? What's that line where it becomes maladaptive? And I really appreciate that. And I think it could be also a talking point with our kids, because it is something that a lot of our kids are growing up in competitive athletics or competitive piano or dance or whatever they're doing. And those are good things to talk about as parents.
Krista,
okay.
I love that.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it just reminded me even, and Alex, kind of back to your point, right? How do we help women become aware of this? Oh, Krista, I just think you touched on a really beautiful point, that even as moms, we are coaches to our children. So I think this could be a really fun question. Try this week. If your children even have a test coming up at school, ask them, hey, right before that test, what do you think? Are you thinking anything? What's your mind doing before that test? And then coach them. Here's when you head to that test, here's what I want you to believe about yourself. I've prepared. I can do this, right? Like, I have the answers inside, right? So we're even helping them with their own mindset. So a really great way for them to even become aware of the mindset, even in athletics, is ask them before a big game, what do you hear internally? Or would you want motivation from your coach? What would be the ideal thing you'd want him to say? And then we get an idea of how our child is wanting to be encouraged. And then we can be the voice that they've kind of described back as would be the most helpful. So that'd be a fun exercise, I think, that moms could do with their kids.
Thank you for that. It's great. So I think this hits on something that I really want to touch on today, and that is around the idea of confidence and how we gain confidence to go into the world and do the work that we're called to do. And our mindset is directly related to this. I mean, it's our mindset is behind our level of confidence and where we're at. So, can you just give some reasons why do we have self-doubt? And how can we use mindset as a tool to help us gain more confidence for the work that we're doing?
I love that question. That's so beautiful. I think, man, the why do we doubt ourselves is a really, individualized, I think, answer. And I think there's different reasons for everybody. I think about why doubt might be present. Maybe you had really critical parents growing up. Maybe you struggled with your peers. I mean, there's a lot of different things. So I think I would love as a coach to pair that back to our listeners and say, where do you believe your self-doubt has come from personally? I think there's internal and external factors always. So let's look at the internal barriers to doubt, and then let's look at the exterior ones as well, right? Like the people that we are experiencing, or the situations, the bad team, the bad sports team that we've been on, or the frustrating team. So I think there's a couple of different reasons why we doubt. I think from a spiritual standpoint, let's really talk about how the enemy likes to deposit doubt to keep us from our God-given work. I don't think that we talk about that enough. And I absolutely believe that self-doubt is the enemy working to keep us small. Because if he can, and he can do it in a really sly way, so we don't know exactly, right, what the kind of where it's coming from. If we really believe, no, it's actually just true, Emily, I don't have what it takes. Okay, well, how much of that might be skills, preparation, resources that you can, right, embed yourself into? There's a part of that. The rest of it, we're going to throw that out as garbage because it might be the enemy. It not, 100 times out of 100 is the enemy working to keep you small. So I like to tell people that when you experience doubt, I want you to pause and think, what's the good work that I'm about to do that the enemy wants to keep me from? Now I get to reframe that doubt in a different way. And honestly, that doubt actually has a face now. And there's no way in, that I'm keeping the enemy from. I'm going to let him keep me from my good work, right? So I think that's a fun way to, depersonalize doubt a little bit and give it that enemy's face, so we can defeat that enemy. I actually love to work with clients on kind of that gremlin voice I was telling you guys about, and it's really fun. There's even a book on really finding your gremlin, and you can dress it up, give it a name, not a name of someone in your life, but give it a name, make it a character, and then see that gremlin outside of yourself. I often like to ask people as well, when it comes to doubt, what is the self-doubt keeping you from? So let's look at it almost as a protective stance. Maybe it's keeping you from risk. And the gremlin is worried for you that you might not be able to handle, the disappointment if it doesn't go well. Again, that's its own lie, right? That we get to talk back to. No, I have the resources, I can manage it, right? That I'm going to fail forward, some of those kind of things. But really pausing, considering what that gremlin's voice really sounds like, recognizing that could actually be the form of your doubt. I think that's key. I also tell people that confidence is found in preparation. So let's also pause and consider, if I'm doubting myself, could there be some truth to the fact that I need to practice, that I actually do need to get better in certain areas of my life? So I actually don't have to look at it from a self-deprecating, oh, poor me, I just don't feel like I have the confidence for that, right? But when I feel doubt, pause and go, hold on. Is there some form of this doubt that is trying to clue me in on an area in my life that I actually want to improve upon? Now I can respond to that in a different way. So I think, there's lots of different reasons for doubt. And then I would say some mindset. Let's talk about mindset resources for gaining our confidence. I would say that number one, confidence can be found in identifying your strengths. What is it that you bring to the table that nobody else brings? Where are you uniquely gifted? What is just fun and energizing for you to participate in? Where there's a ton of tests online, right, about identifying strengths. When we identify our strengths, it's actually called appreciative inquiry. It's using your strengths to help you succeed. So instead of looking at your weaknesses and trying to develop those, We want to go straight to our strengths and work from that pot, because that's a great confidence booster. I think identifying your values is the same kind of an exercise. Identify what's most important to you and then work from that area, and you'll see your confidence improve that way as well. I also love visualization. As an athlete, visualization is a huge tool for success. But the mind, right? We've done research on this, and we know that, for example, when we put an athlete, electrodes on their minds, and we have them shoot free throws with their eyes open, right? And then we have them go into a lab and shoot free throws in their own mind, their muscle fibers twitch the same on the court and in their own mind. So our mind's really powerful. So let's visualize our success. Let's close our eyes and let's watch ourselves on the stage giving an A+ performance. Let's watch ourselves kill that, meeting in front of all of those C-suite executives. When we do that, when we visualize, it also tells our mind, I've been there before, because our mind can't actually distinguish if something's already happened or if it's happening. And one of the ways that doubt or, lack of belief might be happening is because our mind, if it can't see it already happening and it to be a good thing, it will try to protect us from it, because it doesn't know if it's safe for us to go there. So let's close our eyes. Let's go there to these places of success or challenge for us. And let's clue our mind in on, I've been here before and it's safe. So let's go there together. And then the last thing I would say is, really confidence and doubt. I could guarantee you, I could walk into your life and this would be true, that on the days that you doubt, you have talked to yourself in the form of questions. Can I? Am I? Will I? Do I? Can I really manage this meeting? Will I have what it takes? Do I even know what I'm talking about? Right? Those kind of questions, those immediately induce self-doubt questions. So to build our confidence, we're going to take those questions and we're going to talk to ourselves in the form of statements. I can, I am, I will, I do. I do have what it takes. I can show up to this meeting excellently, professionally. I am willing to do hard things. And I do believe in the gifts God's given me and the road that he's given me to walk down. So a change, just a simple change in questions to statements, is enough to supercharge our body and our mind with the confidence then to go and do really great work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for some people, they have those feelings and they're not hearing the voice, the question. So even to just consciously say, I'm going to say a statement to myself right now that I can, they may not be hearing the question to flip it, but they may just be feeling it all in their gut, that doubt, and they're recognizing that it's doubt. So to encourage women that you don't have to wait to hear the question, because your mind might not work that way, but you can still tell yourself, these are my strengths. And I would also encourage women, you don't have to be the best in the room at something to also be good at it. So to remember that our strengths aren't necessarily what we uniquely bring, but we may equally bring something to the table. And so I just want to encourage women in that too, because I think sometimes we want to only speak up if we're the best, or we only want to put ourselves forward if we think we're going to be the A+, but being the B person at it is pretty good too. And remembering that can help build confidence. It doesn't have to be a comparison. It can be, I'm good at it in my own skin.
Well, and the other thing is just that we definitely change the way we operate in confidence when we practice. And so maybe it's the small step of, in the meeting today, I'm actually going to speak up and say something and not diminish my opinion, right? In my own mind, that what do I have to say about this? What do I have to contribute to this meeting? Instead, we say, no, my thought about this, whatever it is valuable. And I'm going to practice speaking up today, or I'm going to practice. I'm going to spend 15 minutes growing in this area I don't feel competent today. And practicing that actually helps us to really gain significant ground in confidence. And I like what you said, Emily, about preparation too, because sometimes we're not confident because we haven't done the work. And that's just a reality that we have to face. So I appreciated that. What about this idea that sometimes we have to fall or hit bottom before we're really able to change our mindset? or to kind of pick ourselves up in that confidence piece. Talk to us about the role that failure has, has in that.
That's such a good question. I love this quote that pain is the greatest motivator to change. And I think that is so true. I also think if you were to do some research on the most successful, now the people, right? We all hopefully we will define success differently. But if you were to just look at the most successful people who you even might go, man, their life is full of just good work and opportunity and, those kind of things, you would see that they have failed more than they have succeeded. Their own mindset around failure has caused them to persevere and then to succeed. So it's really working to establish a different relationship with failure, to be excited. That is a really hard mindset shift, I think, for all of us, because nobody likes the feeling of failure, right? Does it, I think, and in different people, it triggers different things. Is it failure and then embarrassment? Is it failure and self-criticism? Like all of us, some of us might fail and immediately we're going to work till 1 a.m. because right? Like it pushes us to maybe work differently. Some of us might fail and then want to hide, right? And keep ourselves from our work. So there's a ton of different responses to this. And it's really challenging, but it's literally falling in love with the process of improvement, of getting back up and trying again, even when you've been knocked down, right? However you want to see this idea. I love this quote that discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. And I think failure falls in line with that. It is incredibly uncomfortable to fail. And yet every time even I have, right, a personal failure or a professional failure, I like to reframe that and go, okay, you are so blessed to even have this opportunity. What are you learning, right? Where was there a lack of preparation? It's not, Emily, you did this bad thing. It's what could you do to prepare more so that you can sidestep some of those things? What's in your control and what's not, right? Really, really reestablishing our mindset around failure allows us to walk towards purpose and accomplishment and confidence and generosity and just the good work that God has for us. So, really, I think the reason why pain is the greatest motivator for change, ladies, is because it really does stop us and we pause in the pain. It's that hurt. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. It almost jerks us out of that 95%, right? Subconscious mindset. And then we have to go, we get a choice. We can either ignore that pain and we can just keep it moving, or we can allow that pain to cause us to slow down a little bit and say, okay, what was that about? What was my desired outcome? What outcome was I preferring to even show me that, or to even tell me, right, that it was a failure? Where have I judged myself improperly? How would I redefine success next time? Is this about me or is this about the team, right? If we start to ask ourselves some of those questions in our pain, then we coach ourselves up and we allow ourselves that ability to get to a conscious place where we can then choose what we want to do in the pain versus react to the feelings that the pain might create.
And these are the moments, right? This is the moment in every single movie that we're cheering. We're like, come on, you can do it. Get up, get going, start training, do what we're this is literally the rock bottom moment is the moment we are most engaged in the story, because we are so invested in this person finding their strength and finding what it takes to rise up, right? This is the moment. And I just had a friend the other day tell me that her son was in a really hard place and he had that moment and he actually signed up to do that 75-day hard. Have you heard of that? The 75-day hard. And the parents committed to doing it with him. And it's a very challenging mental mindset. You have to exercise 2 times a day for 45 minutes. One of them has to be outside. There's so much brain science around this program. But anyway, right, that was his moment. And he's rising through this 75-day hard. And it's working. It is transforming him. And isn't that amazing? That's right. And instead of seeing these moments of our rock bottom as, oh my gosh, I'm done for. No, let's like be that person, that character in the movie who everyone's cheering for, like rise up. This is your moment to rise.
That's so good. It pumps me up. You're so right. It is truly our defining moments when we experience pain. You're right. Which way are you going to go? Which road are you going to take? And I think it's so interesting. Even what you just described, it reminds me of the questions or the statements in the pain, the questions, am I going to make it? What am I going to do with this? Versus I can, I will, I am, I do. See the pain and be willing with God to choose the path for yourself that you want to choose. There's so much power in that, ladies. There's so much power in all of us. And honestly, I think that probably every single day we all have moments of pain because we're human. But even in the tiniest little bits of frustration or feelings or pain of a certain thing, we could literally coach ourselves every single day to have, this is a defining moment for me. Who do I want to be? And what do I want to do in this unique and small moment? And I really think that is how we live these meaningful lives. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. It's filled with the mess, just like we're saying. It's taking those moments, right? It's taking those moments to define who we want to be. It's how you live an excellent life.
As you were talking, I was thinking about some of the bravest women I know are single moms who have had their life change in an instant, and they have decided, because of my children, I'm going to go this path, right? Like, oh, it gets me emotional. But sometimes for women, it has to be for somebody else's benefit, because we have this ingrained belief system that we can't separate. It's not enough of a motivator. Our own growth is not enough of a motivator until we start doing it for someone else's behalf. And then it's those muscles start. And I've just seen it happen so many times in women where they start doing it for somebody else, whether it's caring for a parent or a child or a spouse who's struggling. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this kind of feels good. And I kind of like where this is headed. And then they recognize the growth that's happening in them that they wouldn't have done if it was just for their own sake. And of course, that's a sad statement, right? We're all valuable women. We should be doing this for our own sake. And yet sometimes it takes that external motivator to do that. And that catalyst for change often, I think, for women is somebody else. Okay. So Emily, let's talk a little bit about research, because this isn't just great ideas, right? Like, the people have researched this and know a lot of stuff about it. What research has helped you as you've been learning in this area of mindset?
Oh my goodness. There are so many incredible resources, and you're right. The research is rich. To completely back up everything that we're talking about today. Dr. Caroline Leaf is a neuroscientist, and she is doing the most incredible work with the mind, and the lives that she's changed with this it's the most impactful thing, I think. But what I love most about her work is that she is a believer, and so she pairs neuroscience, like she studies the brain. I mean, she's done it for years and years and years and years and years, and she pairs it with the word of God. And there is no divide between what the word says and about the scientific work that she's doing. And that pairing, to me, it's God at work. It's the most profound thing to me, that when we can do that. So I would say jump on her stuff immediately. She's got videos, and she's got books, and she's got a podcast, and all of the different ways that you might, love to learn. She has it all. So jump on that immediately. Martin Seligman, my kids joke. I mean, they are, being raised with a life coach. So we have good laughs about that all the time. But the positive, or the father of positive psychology, Martin Seligman, oh my word, I love his stuff. I love his research on really what positivity and optimism does. And it's not toxic positivity, which is what we're learning, where it can be more detrimental, right, to our health and our faith and our life. It isn't that. It is truly brain research and what generosity and optimism and positivity does to support our mind. He's got research on this most severely depressed and anxious people on suicide watch, and he gives research and projects to these people, and it changes their lives. He's incredible. So I would say look him up. Absolutely. Dr. Anita Phillips, she's phenomenal. She's a therapist. She's just doing great work in the world. And she's the one that really gave me this kind of format: thinking, believing, feeling, doing. That is how we change as human beings. And oftentimes when things are hard, we want to go straight to the doing. What do I need to do differently to get a different outcome? And she has us take a couple steps back to the thinking, just like what we're talking about today, which really generates true change. So I love her work. And then the last one, oh my word, top 5 books of all time, Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl survived the Holocaust. He developed logotherapy. This man, the Man's Search for Meaning, the first half of the book is how he survived Auschwitz. The second half of the book is what he committed his life to doing when he survived, which was helping other people with their trauma. The man is
mind blowing.
Right? If you ever need perspective on, listen, and all of us have hard things that we are showing up to. This man's book will give you perspective, and it'll give you courage to define for yourself in those moments, right? When you need to put the boxing gloves on. I love him so much. So those are my top runners right now.
So good. Well, and YouTube is filled with so much. I mean, so people could just literally go on YouTube, enter their name, and all this stuff comes up, and they can pick one. Okay, Emily, if you had to pick 3 things that people could start doing today, like, okay, I'm convinced, Emily, I'm in, I want to do better at this mindset game. What can they do?
Okay, I love it. Thank you for this question, because as a coach, right, we're on to forward momentum. How are we going to move you to the place that you want to get? So I would say Martin Seligman, he has researched what's called Hunt the Good. Okay. So at the end of every day, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down, either on your cell phone, put it in your notes, get a notebook out and actually write. That's so good, you guys, for your brain, for your thinking. If you actually get a paper and a pencil, we don't do that very much anymore. And I want you to write 3 good things that happened today and why they happened, right? So if it's, your partner or somebody at work or yourself, you're going to really describe what went well and why did it go well. And we're going to write it down. And you guys, what he found was that when those severely depressed and anxious people did this for 30 days, they did not change their meds. They did not change one other external factor. When they only wrote down 3 good things and why they happened, it took them from the most severely depressed and anxious to up at the very more than halfway point of mildly depressed and anxious. So this is huge for your mindset. Hunt the good. Go on a treasure hunt for the good things that are happening around you.
Okay, let me ask a question real quick before you go to number 2. So what if someone is just really struggling with, like, I'm just not seeing a lot of good in my life. Like, my life feels really hard. How can they maybe even dial back to the basics of, okay, I'm breathing, or that's just one, but what would you say to that?
I love that. Yeah, you're right. We absolutely right. Especially, I think, where we live in the United States, we have a different idea of maybe what good is, and what it's that constant wanting more, or right, like that kind of an idea. And so I think, just like you said, Krista, scale it back to the basics. What have you potentially forgotten about as good in your life? What are you taking for granted? Another idea could be I love books. If you're really struggling to find good things, pick up an autobiography of a person that's lived maybe in a different part of the world, that's overcome a really significant challenge. That can help us get a little bit of perspective.
It's good.
So think about, okay, what am I taking for granted for? Do I have a house? Do I have a fridge full of food? Did I get to go on a bus or a car today? Am I alive? Am I breathing? How's my mind working today? How does my body feel? We can go back to those basics, and then search for perspective somewhere.
Love it. Okay. Number 2. Go ahead.
Alex. Yeah. What?
Just go with the silly too. Like little tiny things, like my kids put on matching socks. I mean, if you really are struggling with the big things, go super small to the point where you're like, this is ridiculous that this is my grateful thing, my good thing, but it at least is getting the ball rolling.
That's so good. I love it. And it makes you laugh. You know what, Alex, you reminded me. Here's what I love about this. Even like, let's say today you start, okay, I'm going to hunt the good. Here's what I love about this exercise. if today was really hard to find good things, well, guess what? Tomorrow, I now know that I'm going to be asking myself what good things happened.
Yeah.
So let me generate the good things now. I'm going to stop and get my favorite cup of coffee. I'm going to swing by my friend's house on the way home, knock on the door, give her a hug, and then leave. It puts us as the author of our own life. If we recognize we don't have anything good, then it's like, okay, how do I get that good thing going? And then we're going to have in 30 days a more robust list, I think, to choose from if we see ourselves as the author of that.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, on to number 2.
Okay, so number 2, can we please write up a T chart somewhere? I want you guys to draw that T chart up. On the left side, I want the myth, the lie, the gremlin, or the thought that is keeping you small or charging your feelings in a way you don't want them to be charged, right? If I'm feeling anxious, let me just pause. Let me consider what my mind is doing in this moment. Write it down on the left side. The right side, we're going to write what we want to be true or what is true. And we're going to start to just get a really good picture, metacognition of what it is that our mind is doing. That is going to give you some really great feedback about where you even maybe need to begin. And then the third one, they're so hard, you guys, to do 3. Okay, I have 5 questions I'd like you to ask yourself. And I want you to answer these questions. I want you to ask them and I want you to answer them. And I want you this to be your focus for a month. Here's your questions. What lights my heart on fire? What keeps me up at night? What makes me stand out in a crowded room? And here's the deal. I want to remind you, Alex, you kind of spoke to this, like, maybe I'm not uniquely different, but like, I'm just, I have a B. You know what I'd like to say to that? You are uniquely different because God made you in a unique and stunningly beautiful way. And if you even think, I'm just a C. No, you're not. No, you're not. You are uniquely different. Like the thumbprint all of us have that's different. Maybe it just is really hard for you to identify that. And that's the good work that you get to start with. But I want you to answer this question. What makes me stand out in a crowded room? There is an answer because the God of the universe wired you to be uniquely different and beautiful when you walk in. So let's answer that question specifically. What have I dreamt about doing, but I've never done? And then I love this one. What do other people tell me that I'm good at? Because oftentimes other people can see our gifts maybe sooner or with more clarity than we can. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to answer those questions. And then based on your answers, I want you to live in that fullness, in that richness. I want you at the beginning of every day to remind yourself of what makes you different when you go into a crowded room, to bring to mind who it is that your partner said you were. And then when you enter into a day, you focus on those things. And then because we know that brain research says that our thoughts generate a literal energy, when I start my day thinking about what lights my heart on fire, which is generosity, encouragement, motivation, and true inspiration for others, I can't help but live that way. And so every moment as I think about what my heart is just built to do, I'm going to go and do that. And then I'm going to get supercharged with energy. I'm going to go and do that. And then I leave the end of my day when these things are my focus. I have led a beautifully full and rich, energetic life. And it's really hard not to love a life when you live that way. So those are the 3 things that I would say that if you could really do even any one of those 3 for a single month, you literally have the power to change your whole life based on one of those 3 exercises. It gets me so excited.
Good, Emily. So good. And we actually did that exercise as a family where the question on the table, it was just a dinner, was what is this person's superpower? So we actually went around and named everyone's superpower. So like, let's say we did my husband. So we all had to come up with what we thought was his superpower together. So it wasn't like every person said, I think this is yours. We actually came up with, okay, this is what we think Dad's superpower is. And then we like bestowed that on him. And so even like, that's a fun exercise because maybe you don't see it in yourself, but other people know. And it was interesting because we all agreed pretty quickly, which just shows that, right? There's themes. Themes. So
people
good.
know. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
All right, Emily, let's go with, to end our conversation, which has been so good, so rich, so helpful. Give us a mindset mantra that we can carry with us.
Okay. So you guys asked me this question and, I had so many come up, which was just a really fun practice for me. So thank you for asking me that question. I would say that depending on the season, these change, right? Because again, we want the most adaptive strategies for where we're at. So I would say that my current favorite verse Actually, God spoke it over my life at the Sisterhood Roundup with you two leading the charge. Matthew 10:29, are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, and yet not one will fall to the ground unperceived by their Father. The very hairs on your head are numbered. Do not worry. You are worth more than many sparrows. So when I get into I'm nervous moment, or a pity party for myself, or when I get really scared about something, I literally think about a sparrow, and then I say this verse over to myself, and it reminds me of how precious I am to Jesus. It's my favorite verse right now. And then I have a couple. I love and light. So if I get frustrated with somebody, because we all live amongst human beings, and there can be that, I say love and light, and it reminds me to be love, to be light. I'm offering up that love and light towards heaven. I'm extending that towards the person that might feel frustrating for me. So that helps me kind of stay in alignment with who I want to be as it relates to others. And then I already used this one, but discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. And I remind myself of that when I'm pitching to a new client, when I'm doing something that feels stretching our families, we're moving across the country, that feels really uncomfortable. And I just tell myself that to remind myself it's good work. And then last one, I had a great coach give me an essence assignment where she gave me 5 words based on me interviewing people in my life. Just like you said, Krista, it's that dinner table, and I extended it to about 10 people. And I have 5 essence words: exuberance, wisdom, magic, radiance, love. Those are the words that were spoken over me. And so again, when I am feeling pressed either to perform, when I'm feeling in my feelings and I don't want to be there, I give myself those essence words, and it reminds me of who I want to be, and then I can act in light of that. So those are my favorite right now. And I would love to give everybody this essence assignment, because that is really powerful. So Krista, let's just challenge, right? And Alex, let's challenge the people in our lives. Sit down at a table with your friends or your family, with anybody who's in your life, and speak those superhero words over each other, because then you will get your essence words that you can repeat back to yourself in those moments that feel pressing for you.
So good, Emily. Amen. Amen. Sister, thank you so much. What a gift. I mean, truly, like, this changes everything. Mindset changes everything, literally everything in our lives. It has the potential to, for better or for worse. And so helpful. Thank you. Thank you. We love you so much. And you are an incredible coach and an incredible human being, and a really special sister in the sisterhood.
Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for leading the charge, ladies. Your leadership is life-changing as well. So it's an honor to be in the sisterhood.
All right. Bye, Emily.
Bye.